So today I'm going to be walking you through some of my go-to variations of split squats and lunges to target your glutes. Now, generally speaking, these are really going to do a great job of loading your glutes in more of their lengthened range and what I tend to term stretcher exercises. And what's interesting about that is that stretcher type exercises tend to target your lower glutes a little bit better than, say, squeezers. So those exercises like glute bridges, for example, that load your glutes in more their shortened range of motion. So let's dive in and I'm going to show you how. So the first exercise I'm going to show you are called angled Smith machine split squats. Now, as I said, these are a really great exercise for loading your glutes in that really long stretch position at the bottom of the exercise. So what we're going to do here, we've obviously got our Smith machine set up with just a little bit of weight on here. You're going to need less weight than what you think with these. So we've also got a plate, so you probably want something around 3 to 6 inches to start off with, but you can adjust the height of the plate depending on what kind of deficit you want to create from this. And just to add something to that, the deficit with a lot of these exercises that we're going to be using, so elevation off the floor, just allows you to get a little bit more hip range of motion, loading your glutes in even more of that length and range of motion. So, angled Smith machine split squats. We're going to drop ourselves under the bar, and these are called angled split squats because we're basically going to be angling this bar across one side of our shoulder on the side of the leg that we're going to be loading with. Now, the benefits to this are kind of twofold really. First off, we're putting a lot of weight over that one side glute, but also it's a really nice comfortable position for your shoulders to be in. So there's no kind of being forced back here if you do have any kind of cranky shoulder issues. So what we're going to do is unload that weight. Most of that weight, as I say, is through that front leg. As we come down, we're just going to slightly twist into that lunge or that split squat and then back up. Whatever you do with your arm is up to you. You can kind of have it here. It doesn't really matter. You can have it on your hip. So we're down, we're slightly twisting into it and then through. So this is an exercise popularized by the late, great John Meadows. I said, really great exercise for loading your glutes. Do that big stretch in that bottom position. You can also do these straight up, straight down if you don't want to add that twist. So that will look something like this. And then obviously once you finish your reps on one side, switch over and you're good to go. So another exercise you can do with this exact same setup, instead of going into split squats, you can go into angled lunges. So what we're going to do, exact same position as our previous exercise, bar angled over one shoulder, and just to note, if that bar's really kind of digging into your upper traps, you can just put a squat bar pad over the top if you want to. So we're unracking, we're going to step through and then into that deep reverse lunge and through into that deep reverse lunge. So deficit is for a deficit. You're going to be dropping that knee underneath the height of that plate or box that you've set at. And as you notice, as I come through, I'm just slightly leaning back into that bar. So that's another variation. So I tend to probably prefer programming the angled split squat over that, just because you can get a little bit more load, a little bit more focus over it, but that's also a good option as well. So this next exercise is a supported reverse lunge variation. We're going to be using the Smith machine for this one, but you can equally do this in the rack with the bar across, or even just holding the uprights of the rack if you want to. You can use a bit of disused equipment, really doesn't matter. But if you've got access to it, Smith machine, it's easy. So what we need for this is just one dumbbell, okay? So the dumbbell is going to go on the side of the leg that's going to be stepping back. And again, we're going to be working off of a deficit with this exercise as well. So I'm going to be having that in my left arm. So my right leg's going to be doing most of the work in this one. My right arm is going to be on that bar. And what that's going to be doing, it's going to be helping me with support and balance as I'm doing this. So I'm going to take a nice long step back into that deficit reverse lunge. Most of that weight through that right side, that right leg glute. Very little weight through that left back leg, and try and step through using my right leg. So into that deficit, knee drops below the height of the box or the step, and then repeat. I'll just give you a few reps on the other arm, just so you can see. So again, that weight is just on that back side. Support and stability is coming from that arm placed on that Smith machine.
So if you've got anything like this Panatta squat machine or a true squat or something similar, then you can set up what would be naturally a deficit reverse lunge and using more of a forward body angle. Just because the way these machines are designed, they work really well for this. So we can go into that deficit and load our glutes in that really lengthened, that stretch position at the bottom. So what we're gonna do, as I said, if you don't have a Panatta, there are machines that are very, very similar. So what you're gonna do is start in the middle of your machine, step up, make sure obviously your safety's off, and just get really comfortable just on that one leg that you're gonna be working with. As you take a step back, which obviously this machine isn't necessarily intended for, but it works really well. As you take a step back, you're gonna be really forward leaning into that machine and going nice and deep, taking those hips to a really big range of motion. So you're almost leaning into that left side glute right now as you go back. So we're really angling that torso forwards as we come down. And then obviously we can go on the other leg as well, making sure we're super comfortable before we go. A lot of balance, a lot of stability there. And then we step through. So if you don't have anything like the Panatta squat machine, we've just done that leaning lunge on. Then you can also do like a free weight variation using dumbbells. So Coach Nick Tominello, I'll credit these to him. I believe he calls these an anterior lunge, but as I call them kind of a leaning reverse lunge. So what we're going to do is start in that standing position. As we step back with our dumbbells, we're going to lean our torso forward. So it's a very kind of hip dominant lunge position. And it's a great alternative if you don't have one of those machines, as I've just shown you that angle in reverse lunge on.
So here's an exercise I really enjoy that I popularized probably about 3 or 4 years ago now. So it's called a landmine shouldered reverse lunge, and that's because we're going to shoulder the landmine on one side. Now if you have a bar pad, it's probably going to be better for you if you've got that bar pad on your shoulder just for some cushioning. I'm going to show you without, just because I don't have access to one today. But what we're going to do is going to whip that landmine up to one shoulder, okay? We're then just going to rest it on that one side and just lean slightly into it. Now what you can do is you can obviously hold the end of the collars, or like I do, you can actually hold the plate here. So we're really leaning forward into it, and we're going to be having our working leg stay forwards and then our opposite leg on the way back. So our working leg that's forwards is going to be the one with the bar over your shoulder. So we're going to step back into a nice deep reverse lunge and then through. And as you can see, as I step through, I'm just leaning forwards into it. As I say, you can hold that bar wherever you want to, wherever is most comfortable for you. But as you can see, same with all the other exercises, we're going into a really deep range of motion with our hips and loading our glutes in that lengthened range at the bottom. It's a really good stretcher exercise, this one.
Moving forwards in everything we always do. We always use that sagittal plane of movement. So whether it be squats, Romanian deadlifts, lunges, we're always moving forward. So it's very, very important to include more exercises that load that frontal plane, so going sideways. Now, I know a lot of you, especially a lot of my kind of figure pros, really hate going sideways in like sideways lunge variations and lateral split squats and things like that. But this is an exercise
that I find my clients really enjoy and will load you in that frontal plane of motion. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna start off with some slight elevation. So I just use a couple of bumper plates here, make sure obviously they're pretty sturdy, or you can use a box, small step, whatever, and adjust the height according to whatever's gonna work best for you. So I'm just gonna start with a dumbbell, we can do this with a kettlebell, whatever. So we're gonna start on that box. As we step out towards the side, think of this as stepping out into a squat, okay? So we're leading with that dumbbell, not too wide. I'm just showing you very slowly on this one, into a nice deep squat and then through, okay? So into a nice deep squat and then back onto that box. Now what I'm doing here, I've obviously got a lot more of a deficit on that one side. I'm taking my right side at the moment through more hip flexion range of motion, but my left side is still working because it's got to produce a lot of force because of that kind of braking effect on the floor. So I'm actually working both sides at the same time and I'm working in that frontal plane. Obviously, once you've done reps on one side, switch your arms over, straight onto the other side. So you'd be really hard pressed to find a single leg exercise much better than a Bulgarian split squat or a rear foot elevated split squat. Now, the big kind of, I suppose, the big issue most people have with that rear foot elevated split squat is their back foot position. Now, the idea behind the back foot is that it's there to provide some balance and some stability, but it's not there to push through. It's not there to help you. Now, a lot of people on that rear foot elevation on, say, a bench, they'll place their foot like this. So very much kind of dorsiflex position. Now, to take that out of the equation and to not let your back foot do as much work, you ideally want to find a scenario or set something up that allows you to hook your laces over it rather than actually, as I said, your toes into it. And that's one of the reasons why I like using a Smith machine for this, or a barbell in a rack, or if you have one, a split squat stand is obviously better than all of these because obviously you're not taking up some other people's equipment. So what we're gonna do with that, we've got it set to just below my knee height. You might vary a little bit, start off lower. The lower you go, the more you can tend to cheat a little bit. The higher you go, you might have some issues with range of motion. So we're gonna hook our back foot on behind. And when we hook our back foot, what you should be able to do there, or how I teach it, is that if you then take your foot off, you should still have balance on that leg that's forwards, okay? So that's how you find the right position for this. So from there, we know we're in the right position. We're just gonna lean into this as well, okay? So we're not kind of keeping up right here like a lot of people do. We're trying to emphasize our glutes a little bit, so we're leaning forwards, getting a lot of load through that front leg. We're gonna pick our dumbbells up, and then we're gonna mostly press through that forward leaning leg, okay? We're gonna get as deep as we can, getting that full range of motion. Obviously, once we've done our reps on one side, I like to finish at the bottom, take legs off, switch legs, go again. Okay, so final exercise I'm going to show you is a walking lunge. Now, walking lunges are a really great finisher exercise, not just because they're great at loading your glutes and your quads as well, and your hamstrings all at the same time, but also they're just hard, okay? And sometimes we just have to do things that are hard to develop us mentally as well, to make sure that we push in our workouts a little bit more. So this lunge variation, we're gonna be doing a 1.5 rep method. So remember I said at the beginning that it's that bottom range of motion, so at the bottom of our lunges or our split squats, where our glutes really lengthen and we really kind of target especially those lower fibers of your glutes. So by adding an extra half rep in the bottom of your lunges, you're just emphasizing that position, you're exaggerating that position a little bit more. So you can do these with whatever you want, dumbbells, barbell on your back, kettlebells. I'm just gonna be using a sandbag, you can mix it up, whatever, okay? So I'm just gonna throw a sandbag on my back, but as I say, you can do this with whatever you want. With these, we want to be taking a nice wide step, so we've got maximum stability there, rather than going in a straight line. So we're almost zigzagging out towards the side, so it's 1.5 and step in the middle, okay? So we don't want to step straight into the next one there. We're zigzag to the side, 1.5 and through. 1 and half and through, okay? So one, little one, through. So I'm just showing you 9 exercises, 9 of my go-to exercises to build glutes, especially that lower glute region, which I know a lot of my figure pros and bikini girls kind of struggle with. I always get feedback to grow that kind of that glute ham tie-in. So if you're trying to grow that area, then these are some really great options. Whether they're the best for you, that's completely up to you. Obviously, you'll all vary depending on kind of anatomical structure, your training history and things like that. My go-to advice is always pick the exercises that feel best and feel like they're targeting the area best, whilst also avoiding pain at the same time. So some of these might work really well for you, some not quite so much. As I said, have a kind of a tweak with them as well. But anyway, hope you enjoyed this video. A lot more like this to come in the future in kind of my exercise index section. So yeah, let me know if you liked it, add a like, add a comment, and make sure you subscribe to my YouTube. See me at thefitnessmaverick.com.